He walked into the kitchen, and what he saw stopped his heart. His baby was upside down, the maid was holding him over the sink. The baby was crying. Her face was tight, focused. He thought she was hurting his son. He didn't ask. He just reacted. He shouted. His voice shook the room, but he didn't know what was really happening. He didn't see the whole truth. Not yet. That day didn't just change his son's life. It changed his. Because sometimes God doesn't show up in the way we expect. Sometimes he sends help in silence, through people we overlook, in moments we almost destroy. And it all started in 1 second of pain and 1 moment of grace. Harry Ellison was once the man everyone admired. Sharp, powerful, brilliant. He built an empire with his mind. But when his marriage collapsed, everything inside him fell apart. It wasn't just a divorce. It was betrayal, public, loud, ugly. And after that, the man who had built everything started to feel like nothing. His son, Michael, had just been born. But Harry couldn't bring himself to hold him. He didn't know how to love through the pain. So he buried himself in work, emails, deals, meetings, silence. The house stayed clean, the lights stayed on, but there was no joy, no presence, only routines and emptiness. And into that emptiness came Amanda. She was quiet, gentle, steady, not hired to be a savior, just the housekeeper. But where everyone else kept their distance, Amanda stepped in. She saw what others ignored. She listened to what couldn't be said. She stayed. And little by little, something shifted. Michael's cries softened. There was music again. And someone in that house had started paying attention. But Harry didn't notice, not until he came home early, walked into the kitchen, and saw something that broke him open. Before we continue this story, if you've ever made the wrong judgment in a moment of fear, or pushed love away without meaning to, if you've ever felt God was far, but later saw he'd been close the whole time, then this story is for you. Like this video, subscribe, and tell us where in the world you're watching from. Because sometimes, grace doesn't come loudly. Sometimes it comes through the hands of someone we barely notice until they save everything. The house sat just outside Seattle, tucked behind tall pines and a long winding driveway that never echoed with voices. Everything about it was perfect: polished wood floors, clean white walls, security cameras at every gate, a view of the lake that looked like something out of a catalogue. But inside, it was quiet. Not peaceful quiet, empty quiet. No laughter, no conversations, only the hum of machines and the occasional soft cry of a baby, crying to someone who rarely came. Harry Ellison didn't hate his son. He just didn't know how to love him anymore. Not after what he'd lost. Not after everything he used to believe about family had come undone. Since the divorce, Harry had withdrawn into what he knew best: control, systems, work. He paid for the best pediatricians, hired estate staff with glowing references, made sure the nursery was stocked with every product the baby might need. But love doesn't come in boxes, and Michael, barely 7 months old, felt it. The absence, the silence, the arms that never came. Babysitters came and went. Some stayed a few weeks. Most didn't return after the 3rd or 4th shift. Then came Amanda. She wasn't hired through an elite agency. No long list of degrees. Just a quiet referral from the estate manager, someone who said, "She's good. Just give her a chance." Amanda arrived on a Tuesday morning, wearing plain clothes, carrying one small bag, and a quiet strength that didn't need to prove itself. She didn't ask where the cameras were, didn't flinch at the size of the place. She just asked to see the baby's room. No one told Harry when she arrived, and he didn't ask. The truth is, he'd stopped paying attention to the names and faces of the people who walked his halls. He'd become good at distance, better at silence. Amanda didn't fight that. She simply moved through the house like she belonged there, but never tried to claim space. She fed Michael, changed him, rocked him when he cried. She adjusted the light in the nursery so it wouldn't hit his face too harshly, turned down the monitor volume so he wouldn't wake to static, sang to him softly, songs with no audience, just presence. And she watched. She noticed the way Michael squinted at sunlight, the way his chest moved when he cried, just slightly strained, the soft gasp in his breathing that came and went. She didn't panic, didn't report it to a boss. She just started a notebook, a small one, faded cover. Every page, a quiet record of symptoms, patterns, changes. No one saw her writing, but she never missed a page. The other staff noticed her, not because she talked much, she didn't, but because the baby stopped crying so much, because warmth had started to return to the air, because something was different. Even the dog, an old retriever that hadn't wagged in weeks, started following her down the halls. But Harry still didn't see it. He passed Amanda in the mornings, gave a nod, maybe a dry thanks, then disappeared behind his office door. Some nights, long after Michael had gone to sleep, Amanda would walk the hallways quietly, checking windows, turning off extra lights. She'd pass by Harry's study and see the soft blue glow of the screen, hear the silence behind the glass. She never knocked. She didn't need anything from him. She was there for Michael. That was enough. And still. The house remained quiet. Until one morning, without warning, Harry came home early. No calls, no texts, no alerts to the staff. Just a change of mind. A rare impulse. A man who hadn't listened to his gut in months, turning his car around on the highway and pulling back into his own driveway before the sun had finished rising. He walked through the front door past the foyer, set his keys on the counter like a stranger in his own home, and stepped into the kitchen. What he saw froze him in place. Amanda, by the sink. Michael in her arms, upside down, his small body twitching, her hand on his back. Firm, focused. The baby was crying, but not normally. It was sharp, strained, and her face looked like something was wrong. Everything in Harry's body went cold. His voice came out before his brain could stop it. "Amanda, what are you doing?" She turned, startled but not shaken. "He's choking," she said. Her voice was steady, clear. Harry blinked. His mind couldn't keep up. His heart was pounding too loud. Then he saw it. Michael's pale face, his rigid arms, the soft sound of no air. Amanda shifted him slightly, tapped his back again. 1, 2, 3 times. A moment passed, then a gasp. A cry, a loud, full cry. Michael was breathing. And in that moment, everything Harry thought he knew about that woman, about his son, about himself, began to fall apart. The kitchen was quiet now. Michael had fallen asleep against Amanda's chest. His breathing was calm. His little fingers still curled with tension, but Amanda his body no longer trembled. She moved slowly, gently. She wiped the baby's mouth, checked his pulse again, more out of instinct than worry, and then cradled him like nothing else in the world mattered. Harry stood by the doorway, still, speechless. For a man who ran empires, who made split-second decisions that moved markets, he suddenly didn't know what to do with his hands, or his voice, or his shame. He had shouted, accused, assumed the worst. And yet, here she was, calm, steady, holding the very child he hadn't known how to reach. "Do you want me to explain what just happened?" Amanda asked softly. Her tone wasn't defensive, it wasn't emotional, just clear, solid, kind. Harry shook his head. Once. "I saw enough," he muttered, eyes low. But the truth was, he hadn't seen anything. He didn't know what the technique was called, didn't know how she knew what to do, didn't know how long she'd been carrying this quiet burden on her own. Amanda walked past him slowly, Michael still pressed to her shoulder. She paused at the hallway, turned slightly. He aspirated on his formula, thickened milk. It blocked his airway. I had to act fast. She didn't wait for a reaction, she just added, "He'll be okay, but he's had signs for a while." Then she disappeared down the hallway, back to the nursery. Harry stood alone. The silence returned, but it wasn't the same. This time, the silence was filled with questions, real ones. That night, after the house had gone still, Harry didn't go to bed. He sat at his desk in the study, staring at the wall. No meetings, no calls, just the sound of the lake outside and the faint ticking of the old clock on the shelf. Eventually, he opened his laptop, pulled up the estate's security feed. He hadn't checked it in weeks. He clicked back to that morning. The footage played. Amanda in the kitchen, feeding the baby, laughing softly when he kicked the bottle out of her hand. Then, suddenly, his body tensed. She had moved fast. No panic, no screaming, just instinct, training, love. It shook him. He rewound it again, watched it slower. The way she tilted Michael's head just slightly to check his lips. The way she supported his neck with one hand while working with the other. The moment she whispered, "Come on, baby. Stay with me." He closed the screen. A long silence followed, and for the first time in a long time, Harry Ellison felt something crack inside his chest. It wasn't just guilt. It was grief. Grief that he had missed everything. He walked to the nursery door that night, paused. He could hear Amanda humming. The melody was soft, gentle, familiar. He didn't go in. He didn't know how to. The next morning, Amanda was already in the kitchen. She had changed, simple clothes, hair tied back. Michael was in his high chair, chewing on a soft silicone toy, wide-eyed and content. Harry cleared his throat as he walked in. Amanda looked up. She didn't flinch. He nodded toward the baby. "He okay?" She nodded back. "He's better." He looked at her, then the counter, then down at his hands. "I didn't know what I was seeing yesterday," he said. I thought he was in danger." Amanda didn't reply right away. She just watched him. "I reacted. I was wrong." His voice cracked slightly. "I didn't even ask, I just—" He stopped. Amanda's voice was steady, low. "It's okay to be scared, especially when you love someone but don't know how to help them." Harry blinked. No one had said that to him before, not the therapists, not the lawyers, not the board members. Just this woman, this quiet woman, standing in his kitchen, speaking truth that felt like it had come from somewhere higher. He let out a slow breath. "I haven't been a good father." "You've been a hurting one," she said. "There's a difference." And somehow, that didn't feel like judgment. Later that day, Harry walked past the laundry room and saw Amanda bent over a notebook. He paused. It was open, filled with careful notes, dates, times, symptoms, small adjustments, lines written in tight, clean handwriting. "Is that for Michael?" he asked. Amanda looked up, nodded. "I keep track of everything. Breathing patterns, light sensitivity, feeding issues. He's been showing signs for a while." Harry stepped closer. The pages were full, every line, proof that she had seen what he hadn't. And in that moment, he didn't feel threatened. He felt humbled. This woman, who had been invisible in his house, had been the only one who truly saw his son. Harry didn't sleep much after that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, hearing faint echoes, not from the house but from his own memory, his wife's voice in the hospital room, his son's first cry, muffled through glass, the silence of the car ride home, alone. He had done everything he could to stay away from those moments, and now they were finding him. The next morning, he stayed home. No meetings, no phone calls. He told his assistant to clear the calendar, then stood in the hallway of his own home like a stranger waiting to be let in. From the nursery came soft sounds. Amanda was singing, something old, maybe a lullaby, maybe a hymn. He stepped closer. Michael's soft laugh floated through the door. It wasn't the first time he'd heard that sound, but it was the first time he truly listened to it. Something about that laugh. It hurt. Not in a bad way, in a way that made him realize how much he'd missed. He didn't go in. Instead, he went to the kitchen and sat at the table he never used. Poured coffee. He didn't drink. A few minutes later, Amanda came in with Michael in her arms. The baby reached for the countertop. Amanda shifted him calmly, balancing him on her hip. Harry looked up. and for the first time, he really looked. Michael had his mother's eyes. He'd never noticed that before. Amanda walked to the fridge, grabbed a bottle she'd prepped earlier, and tested it on her wrist. Her movements were simple, careful, trained, but not mechanical. Loving. "You do this every morning?" Harry asked quietly. Amanda glanced at him. "Yes, around 9 a.m., give or take. He's better on routine." Harry nodded, more to himself than to her. "I used to be that way. With work, I mean." Amanda didn't say anything. He watched her feed the baby, cradling him in one arm as naturally as if he were her own. "Where'd you learn all that?" he asked. "I used to work in a children's clinic," she replied, eyes still on Michael. "Pediatric floor. I wasn't a nurse, just support staff. But I watched. Learned." She paused. "After my mother passed, I had to take care of my little brothers. One of them had breathing issues too." Harry leaned back, taking that in. Everything made sense now. The way she moved, the way she knew. It wasn't just training. It was experience. It was witnessed pain. And she had turned it into something that could heal. Later that afternoon, Harry tried something he hadn't done in weeks. He opened the nursery door. Amanda was gone, probably folding laundry or cleaning the guest wing. Michael was in his crib, staring up at a mobile that turned slowly with soft music. Harry stepped in, quietly, carefully. The room smelled like baby powder and eucalyptus. He stood over the crib. Michael turned his head, eyes locking with his. For a moment, nothing moved. Then Michael smiled. It wasn't big, just the kind of smile that says, "I remember you." Harry's throat tightened. He reached down slowly, hands uncertain. Michael reached up, and when Harry lifted him, awkwardly, clumsily, Michael didn't cry. He laid his head against his father's chest, like he'd been waiting. That small body against his... It wrecked him, because this was his son, and he hadn't been there. That night, Harry stood in front of the mirror. His face looked tired, older than he remembered, but his eyes, they looked clearer. He pulled open his dresser drawer and found a photo from months ago. His wife, holding Michael, smiling. He hadn't looked at it since the divorce. He whispered out loud, barely, "I'm sorry." To her, to Michael, to God. Meanwhile, Amanda was in the laundry room. She folded onesies in silence, the hum of the dryer filling the space like background music. On the counter beside her was her notebook, open to a new page. Today's notes read, "Slight wheezing after crying. Feeding better when angled upright. Reached for father. Calmed in his arms." She paused, pen in hand, then wrote one more line. "Father is noticing." The house felt different now, not loud, not healed, but shifting, like the first breath after a long cry. Harry started coming home earlier. He still didn't say much, but he noticed things. The scent of warm formula before dinner, the way Amanda timed Michael's feedings down to the minute, the way she gently tapped his back in a rhythmic pattern after every bottle, waiting for that tiny burp of relief. Harry watched her like someone watching a stranger raise their child, and in many ways, she was. One evening, the sky turned that deep Pacific blue just before rain. Harry was in his office, the door half open. His laptop screen glowed with unread messages, but he wasn't reading them. He could hear Michael crying faintly through the monitor, Amanda's footsteps pacing, the soft sound of her voice, low, reassuring. He closed his laptop and stood, not out of duty, but something else. Something like longing. He walked toward the hallway, stopped by the nursery, listened. Amanda was sitting on the edge of the rocking chair, bottle in one hand, gently bouncing Michael with the other. She didn't see Harry in the doorway. Her words were barely above a whisper. "I know you don't understand why he's not here all the time," she said softly to the child. "But he loves you. even when he's quiet, even when he doesn't know how to show it. Michael whimpered, then rested against her chest. She kissed the top of his head and exhaled. Harry turned and walked away before she noticed him. But her words stayed with him, echoed like a prayer in a heart that didn't know how to receive it. The next morning, something small but strange happened. Harry passed Amanda in the hallway. She was carrying a laundry basket and didn't see him at first. He said, "Good morning." She looked up, surprised. Not because he spoke, but because of the way he said it. Warm. Present. "Morning," she replied, voice neutral. But something flickered behind her eyes. A shift. A guard. He noticed it. She had been calm with his anger, kind with his absence. But now, with his gentleness. She wasn't sure what to do. Later that day, Harry found himself lingering in the living room. Michael was on the playmat. Amanda sat cross-legged beside him, scribbling into her notebook. Harry stood nearby, pretending to scroll through his phone. "May I?" he asked. Amanda looked up. He gestured toward the mat. She nodded. He knelt down, stiff, awkward. Michael looked up at him, reached out. Harry smiled. And for a while, they played. Amanda didn't say much, just watched, like she was letting something unfold that wasn't hers to interrupt. When Harry finally stood to leave, he paused. "What do you write in that thing?" he asked. She looked down at the notebook, hesitated. "Just patterns, things I notice. It helps me track his needs." "May I read it sometime?" Amanda's face tightened, just slightly, like a door that had creaked open too far. "I don't mind," she said, voice even, "but I didn't write it for you." Harry blinked. She didn't say it to be rude. She said it with honesty. Boundaries. And for the first time he realized she wasn't just the maid. She was the only person in the house who had protected Michael without being paid to pretend. He nodded slowly. "I respect that," he said. Amanda nodded back. But when he turned to leave, she looked down at the notebook again and held it just a little closer to her chest. That night rain finally came, slow, soft, cleansing. Harry stood in the kitchen alone, staring out the window. He thought about Amanda, how she moved with grace, how she never asked for anything. He thought about Michael, how quickly a baby changes, how many of those moments he had already missed. His chest tightened. He wasn't angry. He wasn't proud. He was just aching. Somewhere deep in his spirit, he whispered a thought he hadn't formed in months. God help me get this right. Not for redemption, not for appearances, but because for the first time, he wanted to be present. Harry couldn't sleep, not because of noise, but because of memory. He kept replaying the moment, Amanda by the sink, Michael limp in her arms, his own voice loud and sharp. "What are you doing?" He'd reacted like a man protecting his son. But the truth was, he hadn't been protecting anyone. He'd been blind, and if Amanda hadn't stood her ground, if she'd frozen, panicked, his son might not have made it. That thought sat heavy on his chest, pressed like a weight, one he couldn't shake off. The next day, Harry didn't go to work. Again. He told himself he needed rest, but really he needed answers. Not about Amanda, about himself. He sat in the estate's control room that afternoon, a small space where all the security camera feeds were stored. He hadn't used it in weeks. It smelled like dust and electronics. He fast-forwarded through footage, hallways, living rooms, doors opening, doors closing. Then he saw her, Amanda, carrying Michael through the hallway, humming softly. He rewound, watched again. She adjusted his head position, gave him a tiny shoulder pat, stopped by the window to close the curtains, light too harsh for the baby's eyes. Rewind. Play. Her hands were confident. Her eyes were always on him. He moved to another file. 2 nights ago, 3:12 a.m. Amanda entering the nursery. Michael crying. She didn't turn on the lights. She didn't speak loudly. Just picked him up, pressed him to her chest, and walked slowly in circles. He watched that for 6 minutes. Not because something dramatic happened, but because something real did. Love. Steady, sleepless love. The kind that doesn't ask for thanks. Harry leaned back in the chair, staring at the monitor, and for the first time since the divorce he felt something deeper than guilt. He felt convicted. He'd misjudged the one person who had shown up for his son, and he had done it loud, public, without listening. It wasn't just a mistake, it was a wound, and now he didn't know how to fix it. Later that night, Harry stood outside Amanda's quarters. He didn't knock. He just stood there, hand frozen halfway to the door. What could he say? "Sorry I accused you of hurting my child while you were saving his life." It sounded hollow, even in his head. He lowered his hand, turned away. Not yet, but soon. Instead, he went to his study and pulled Amanda's file. He hadn't read it since the day she was hired. He flipped through the pages, basic resume, a few lines about prior employment, then a handwritten note from the estate manager. Strong character, quiet, used to be a pediatric nurse's aide, left after her mom passed, took care of her siblings full-time. She's not flashy, but she's steady. I trust her. Harry read that note 3 times. Then he closed the folder. Not because he was finished, because he didn't need more proof. He'd already seen it. In the footage, in the notebook, in the way Michael reached for her without hesitation. The shame didn't come as a storm. It came like a tide, slow, rising, pulling him under gently until he had to face himself. The next morning, Harry didn't go to the office, didn't check emails, didn't pretend. He stayed in the nursery doorway for a long time, just watching. Amanda was feeding Michael, her back turned slightly. There was peace in the room, a softness. It didn't feel like a job anymore, it felt like a life being nurtured. She noticed him in the reflection of the mirror, turned slowly. He opened his mouth, but the words didn't come. Amanda held his gaze, calm as ever. He looked down, then back up, and in a voice quieter than he'd used in years, he said, "I almost called Child Protective Services." Amanda didn't flinch, didn't look surprised, just waited. "I didn't understand what I saw. I didn't understand you." A pause. "I'm sorry." The words sat there, naked. Amanda looked at him for a long moment, then nodded, not in agreement, but in understanding. "I know you love your son," she said gently. "I just think maybe you didn't know how to show it." Harry swallowed. It was true, and it hurt more than being wrong. He stepped into the room. Michael looked up from the bottle, blinking at him. "I want to learn," Harry said. "To be better, not just look better." Amanda looked down at the baby, then back at him. "Then start here," she said softly, handing the bottle toward him. "He's been waiting." There are moments that don't feel big when they happen. They feel quiet, almost forgettable. But later you look back and realize that was the moment everything changed. For Harry, it came on a Wednesday afternoon. Clouds hung low. Michael had just gone down for a nap. Amanda was in the study, waiting. He'd asked her to meet him there, not for confrontation, for help. She came in holding her notebook, same one she always carried. No makeup, no performance, just truth in her hands. Harry gestured for her to sit. He looked tired, softer. "I took Michael to the pediatrician this morning," he said. Amanda nodded. "Good. I brought your notebook." For a second, something flickered in her eyes. Concern, maybe. But it passed. Harry reached for the manila folder on the desk, opened it slowly. The doctor read every page. He said it was more detailed than his own staff's records. Amanda stayed quiet. "He thinks Michael might have silent reflux, possibly an airway sensitivity, something they missed because I wasn't paying attention." His voice broke slightly at the end. Amanda looked down. Harry closed the folder, let his hand rest on it. "You knew something was off," she spoke gently. "I noticed signs, that's all." "No," he said, shaking his head. "You saw what none of us did. And if you hadn't, If you weren't there that morning in the kitchen—" He stopped. The silence filled in the words he couldn't say. Michael might not be here. Amanda blinked slowly. God gave me a peace that day. I didn't panic. I just moved. I wasn't thinking. I was led. Harry nodded, swallowing hard. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But something broke inside him. The belief that control would save him. The illusion that love could be delegated. The lie that showing up didn't matter. Later that evening, after Amanda had gone back to her room and the baby was asleep, Harry sat on the edge of Michael's crib. The mobile spun slowly overhead. Soft stars. A tiny moon. It was the first time he'd sat this long in the nursery with no one else around. He didn't know how to pray. Not really, not anymore. But he whispered out loud, "I don't deserve them, either of them. But thank you." It was simple. But it was all he had. Down the hall, Amanda sat by her window, legs tucked under her. The notebook was closed. She wasn't writing tonight. She was breathing, letting the tension fall off her like an old coat. She hadn't expected to stay this long, hadn't planned to get this attached. But Michael was different, and even if Harry couldn't say it yet, he was changing. Still, she was cautious. She knew how trust worked. It came slowly, and could break all at once. The next morning, Harry walked into the kitchen early. Amanda was already there, feeding Michael in the soft glow of morning light. "Can I?" he asked. She looked at him, a little surprised. He reached for the bottle, took Michael into his arms. He was stiff at first, but Michael didn't fight him. He leaned into his father's chest like he remembered something that had always been there, even when it wasn't. Amanda stood nearby, watching. Harry looked up. "I read every page," he said quietly, "of the notebook." Amanda tilted her head slightly, curious. He added, "There were things you saw weeks ago. You even marked the night he gasped in his sleep. I was in the house. I didn't hear it." "It's not your fault," Amanda said. "I know," he whispered. "But it wasn't your job to save him, and you did anyway." Amanda looked at the child in his arms. "I didn't do it for praise." "I know," Harry replied. "That's why it meant everything." The room went still. No more words. Just the sound of Michael's soft breath, the quiet creak of the chair as Harry rocked him, and the unspoken truth sitting between them. A bond not built with promises, but with action, with presence, with pain, and with grace. The house was still that morning. Michael was asleep in his crib. Amanda had stepped out for a walk along the edge of the lake, and Harry sat alone in his study, staring at the same page in a book he couldn't read. The silence wasn't the kind he used to crave. It wasn't clean or controlled. It was heavy, alive. His thoughts pressed against him like walls. No one had yelled at him. Amanda hadn't accused. There had been no confrontation. And somehow, that made it worse. Grace, when undeserved, doesn't always feel light. It can land like a weight, because it shows you everything you could have ruined, and didn't. Harry stood. He walked slowly through the halls of his own home, running his hand along the edge of the wall, the cold wood. Rooms he hadn't stepped into in weeks now felt unfamiliar. He passed the laundry room, the dining room, then paused at the nursery door. He pushed it open quietly. Michael was still sleeping. One small fist curled against his cheek. The rhythm of his breath was soft and even. Harry crouched beside the crib, just looked at him. This was his son, his child. He had nearly lost him, and never even realized. Harry felt his throat tighten. He hadn't cried since the divorce, not when she packed her things, not when the press dragged their names through headlines. But now, looking at this small, sleeping body, he felt not loud come, not dramatic, just a release of something held in too long. "I'm sorry," he whispered, not to the baby, to God, to the part of himself he had buried beneath pride and fear and grief. When Amanda returned, Harry was waiting. He stood by the kitchen island. 2 mugs sat on the counter. He offered her one, nervously. She accepted it with a small nod. They sat, not across the room, just across the table, "I need to say something," Harry said, his voice low. Amanda didn't interrupt. He looked at his hands. "I wasn't there. From the beginning. I left everything that mattered in someone else's hands because I was afraid. I thought I couldn't do it." He paused. "And when you stepped in, I judged you. Not because of who you were, but because I didn't want to face who I wasn't." Amanda's eyes softened, but she said nothing. Harry's voice dropped again. "I shouted at you, accused you, and all you did was save him." Silence. "Then, I'm so sorry," he said. "For everything." The words didn't fix anything, but they broke something open. Amanda set her mug down gently. "You weren't the only one in pain," she said. "I didn't come here expecting connection. I just wanted to do what was right." She looked at him fully now. "But your son, he's not a job to me anymore." Harry nodded slowly. "I know." "I wasn't going to stay," Amanda admitted. "I almost left after that day in the kitchen, not because I was angry, but because I thought maybe it was better that way." "What changed?" Harry asked quietly. Amanda's voice was steady. "I saw the way Michael looked at you that one morning. You held him like he mattered to you, like something was waking up." A pause. "And I thought, maybe you just needed time." Harry swallowed hard. "I want to learn. I'm late, but I'm here now." Amanda leaned back slightly, measured, calm. "Then be consistent," she said. "Don't say it to me. Show it to him." That afternoon, something shifted. Harry rearranged his schedule, quietly, cancelled a board meeting, rescheduled 3 calls, then walked into the nursery and asked Amanda to show him how to track Michael's symptoms. She handed him a pen. He took it. Later, he joined her on the floor, stacking blocks with Michael. He didn't know the songs, didn't know how to make the baby laugh yet. But he stayed. That night, Harry stepped into Amanda's workspace, a small room by the west hallway where she kept her files and supplies. He handed her a letter, signed and sealed. "I want to offer you a new role," he said quietly. "Household coordinator and infant wellness advisor, full authority over Michael's care." Amanda stared at the envelope, then looked at him. "I want you to have your own office, a say in how this home runs. Not because you work here, but because you've already saved it." She didn't answer right away. Then, "For Michael's sake," she said, "I'll stay." And in that moment, nothing was resolved. But everything was possible. Something changed after that conversation. It wasn't loud, there were no announcements, no grand speeches or posted schedules, just small shifts, tiny human choices. But when you've lived in silence for too long, even small sounds feel like a symphony. Harry started showing up. He didn't hover, didn't try to take over. He watched, asked, wrote things down. At first, he felt like a guest in his own child's life, but Amanda didn't make him feel foolish. She guided him, without ego, without pity. "Keep him upright after feeding. Wipe under the chin here, he startles easily. Watch his eyes when he turns toward the light." Each instruction carried weight, not because of what it said, but because of how it was given with trust and time. And one morning, Harry entered the nursery before Amanda did. Michael was already awake, making soft noises, his hands batting at the mobile. Harry reached into the crib and picked him up. No hesitation this time. The baby looked at him, then smiled. And Harry smiled back. For real. That moment stayed with him the rest of the day, longer even. It wasn't just about bonding, it was about belonging, the slow undoing of shame, the first breath of redemption. Amanda noticed it too, not because Harry said the right things, but because he stopped avoiding the hard ones. He admitted when he was wrong, he asked when he didn't understand, and he listened, not just to instructions, but to what wasn't being said. One evening she found him installing a new humidifier in the nursery. "Doctor recommended it," he said. "Helps with his breathing. Got a noise-reducing model so he can sleep better." Amanda raised an eyebrow, impressed. "You researched?" Harry shrugged but smiled. "Thought it was time I learned something that actually matters," Amanda nodded. She didn't say, "Thank you." She didn't have to. The look in her eyes said enough. The house itself began to feel different. The kitchen, once quiet and cold, now held life. Michael's toys sat under the island. Amanda's notebook had a place by the fridge. Harry started taking calls in the breakfast nook, where he could see his son play, not just hear about it later. Even the staff noticed. They spoke a little softer, lingered a little longer. The house had warmth again. Not the kind you buy, the kind you build. Then came the moment no one expected. A delivery arrived. A new crib system. Medical-grade mattress. Soft incline. Better for reflux. Harry had ordered it after another late-night research session. As they unpacked it together, Amanda looked at him. "You don't have to prove anything," she said softly. Harry paused, met her eyes. "I'm not trying to prove anything," he said. I want him to be okay. And I want to be the one who helps, not just watches." Amanda nodded slowly. Something in her face relaxed, like she'd been carrying a fear she didn't even realize. And just now, let it go. Later that night, Michael was asleep. The moonlight stretched across the nursery floor. Harry stood by the crib, arms folded. Amanda joined him. They didn't speak for a while. Then Harry said, "Thank you, for staying, for everything." Amanda looked at the crib. "I didn't stay for you." He smiled, no longer wounded by that truth. "I know," she added, "but I'm glad you're here now." That same week, Harry surprised the staff with something new. He called a meeting in the living room. No formal memo, no suits, just real words. He spoke about health, presence, teamwork. He announced Amanda's new position, household coordinator and infant wellness advisor. "She's not just the help," he said quietly. "She's been the heart of this house." Amanda stood in the back, didn't step forward, didn't make a speech. But her eyes, they shimmered, not from pride, but from release. She had carried this house for months. Now, finally, she wasn't alone. Still, everything wasn't perfect. Healing rarely is. There were setbacks, fussy nights, tension that crept in when schedules slipped or emotions got too close. But there was something stronger now. Grace. They'd learned how to speak without shouting, how to admit what hurt, without turning it into blame. And most of all, they learned how to stay. The house was different now, not because the walls had changed, but because they no longer echoed. There was laughter in the morning, Michael's full-bellied laugh, the kind only babies have when they're held close. There was movement in the kitchen, soft music in the nursery, conversation at the table. Nothing dramatic, just life. It had taken months, not to fix everything, but to learn how to live in what remained. Harry stood by the window one quiet evening, watching the rain roll down the glass. Michael was asleep upstairs. Amanda had just finished sorting the last of the donated baby clothes. She was putting together a drive for staff families who needed support. Harry had offered to fund the whole thing. Amanda had smiled and said, "Only if you let me run it." He had laughed and agreed. She was leading more now, not just in title, in truth. And Harry, he was finally following something other than fear. Weeks earlier, he had been invited to speak at a fundraiser for children's health. One of his old investor friends had arranged it, assuming he'd give a polished talk about tech donations and community outreach. But Harry had asked if someone else could speak in his place, someone who had actually done the saving. And so, on a stage lit by soft amber light, in a room filled with polite applause and crystal glasses, Amanda stepped forward. She didn't read a script, didn't dress in anything extravagant, just stood in her quiet strength, and told the truth. She spoke of Michael, of missed symptoms, of silent danger, of what it means to see someone before they're in crisis. And then she said it, gently but clear, "Don't judge a moment before you understand it. You might be watching someone fight to save a life, and all you see is noise." The room was silent. Then the applause began, soft, then swelling. And in the front row, Harry stood, hands together, eyes shining, clapping not just for her, but for who he was becoming because of her. Back at the house, routines settled. Mornings became steadier, Michael stronger. The fear of that choking moment now just a memory, one that no longer hurt, but humbled. Harry started doing bedtime more often. He wasn't perfect, sometimes fumbled with the bottle, struggled to hold the lullaby tune. But he was there, and that changed everything. One afternoon, while Amanda was reorganizing files in her new office, she found something tucked in a drawer, a photo. Old, faded. Harry and his wife, before everything fell apart. Young, bright-eyed, holding a newborn wrapped in hospital cloth. She turned the picture over. There was a note in ink. "We'll do this together." Amanda held the photo for a long time, then closed the drawer, not out of judgment, but respect, for what was, for what had been lost, for what had survived anyway. The final change didn't come in words. It came one evening in the nursery. Michael was on the floor, babbling happily. Harry sat beside him, stacking blocks. Amanda leaned against the doorway, watching. And then Michael turned, reached both hands toward his father, not just to be held, but to be known. Harry lifted him. This time he didn't fumble, he didn't doubt. He held that little body close, chest to chest, and let out a breath he hadn't known he was holding. Amanda smiled, then turned to leave, quietly without interrupting. But Harry looked up, and their eyes met. No speeches, no need. Just one unspoken truth. What he thought he walked in on that day wasn't a mistake. It was mercy, mid-motion. And it didn't just save his son's life, it saved his own. The house no longer echoed. Now it sang, with lullabies, with laughter, with life. And every time Amanda walked into the kitchen, Harry didn't flinch, he smiled. "Thank you for being here, for watching, for feeling, for remembering what matters. If this story touched something in you, if you've ever felt unseen or misunderstood or quietly redeemed, then know this, you are not alone. This is what we do here. We tell stories that speak to the soul, that remind us there is still good in this world, still healing, still grace. So if your heart was moved, stay, subscribe, and be part of this space where stories lift us higher. Welcome to Elevated Heart Stories. We're just getting started, and I hope you'll walk this journey with us.